We'll move on to the 22nd of June, and since I haven't mentioned it in a while, whenever the squadrons fly separately and not as a wing formation, on the overview map to the right, I have 441 in red, 442 in white, and 443 in blue. And then whenever they all fly together, I generally just leave it white when I think of it at all. But let's get into the summaries, and I'll start with 441. 12 of our aircraft were scrambled shortly after noon and sighted 3 Focke-Wulf 190s southeast of Domfront. 2 of the enemy aircraft were destroyed, one by Flight Officer Fleming, and the other was shared by Flight Officer Brown, Flight Officer Chowan, and Flight Sergeant McMillan. And then a really good description of the day from 442 Squadron. Still cool and cloudy, Pilot Officer Burns reported in the morning from Red Hill by boat some doubt as to which squadron in the wing he was coming to, posting notice expected. It was good to see the sun shining again before noon. On readiness at 1300 hours, and at 1330, things looked interesting, and 3 late starters, the wing commander, the OC, and flight commander, replaced 3 regulars. So, in other words, the guys in charge, that would have been Johnson, Russell, and the flight commander. I think Flight Lieutenant Wright is on the books in that position, but I could be mistaken. But in either case, the experienced guys wanted to fly and bumped 3 others. 2 squadrons took off on a bogey, or in other words, were scrambled. Dowding returned as he could only get 2 pounds of boost, followed by Morse. Wright came back when his RT was unserviceable, followed by McClarty. Now on the next page, it describes Big Day. Wing Commander J.E. Johnson knocked down his 30th. 442 Squadron scored their first 3, the first kill going to Pilot Officer Bill Weeks, an ME-109, the youngster of the squadron, and to Flight Lieutenant Marriott, a Focke-Wulf 190, and Pilot Officer Frosty Young. He got an ME-109. And we have a note written in hand out here to the side about Marriott's, and it says Marriott's is credited as shared with Squadron Leader Russell. Now, 7 of our squadron and the wing commander saw 8 mixed 109s and 190s and brought down half of them, the location being about halfway between St. Croix and Paris, or in the Argenton area. At 1700 hours, off to strafe a convoy but did not locate it, back before 1800. After ground targets again at 2155, considerable flak. Flight Lieutenant Trott's aircraft had holes in the wing, but destroyed an oil truck and strafed sundry mechanized transport vehicles. After supper, the crew of a Fortress were seen to bail out at great height and probably drifted over enemy territory. The aircraft circled the field, and then it slow rolled and crashed in a great burst of flame between St. Croix and the sea. Total flying hours, about 40 for the day, busy day. And then 443 Squadron, windy, cloudy with strong wind, clearing in the late evening, good visibility. Squadron took part in a bombing due to Bois le Homme near Gaumont. Attempt made to blow up ammunition dumps supposed to be situated in the woods, but although several hits were observed, there were no large explosions. Usual readiness carried out throughout the day, and ops flying time about 30 hours for the squadron. So, busy day. Let's go ahead and go into the missions. First up is 442 at 1410. On a scramble. Now they get airborne at the same time as 441 Squadron. That's about 5 minutes after 442. So it's possible at this point that they flew as a single formation. I don't think so though, just based on what they describe and where they encounter enemy aircraft. I think they were independent at this time. And in fact, Johnny Johnson notes that in his book at about this time that they began flying as a wing formation of 36 aircraft, but since the Germans were flying in small numbers, he notes that a formation of 36 aircraft was too conspicuous and that they were better served by going up in formations of squadron strength of 12 aircraft, and that in fact matches perfectly what we've been seeing, starting off as everybody going up at one time and then getting into more and more just small-scale missions where even in cases like this where 2 squadrons get airborne at the same time, they don't necessarily go to the same place, and these flight paths that I have laid out for them are in most cases entirely notional, just flying from one point of interest that's noted in the detail description to another, but that doesn't mean that 442 didn't get airborne, go east, and 441 got airborne and went west. That's not something that can really be determined even after a close reading. Now, 442 Squadron describes this as, when returning from a sweep at 7,000 feet, 8 mixed 190s and 109s were seen flying south on the deck just west of Argenton, attacked and destroyed 3, 1 ME-109 by Flight Officer Young, 1 by Pilot Officer Weeks, and 1 by Flight Lieutenant Marriott, all destroyed southeast of Argenton. And again, the note that Marriott's was credited as shared with Squadron Leader Russell. It notes 200 MET moving west from Lisso to Con at 1430 hours, clear, visibility good, few wisps of cloud at 2 to 3,000 feet, and flak moderate to heavy from Argenton. So this column of 200 some odd vehicles moving on the road is something that you just don't see. And it was so out of the ordinary that almost immediately after landing, they went back up a couple of times to look for and try to strafe vehicles, but they never did find this big column of 200, and I have the image here from the 15th that only shows just a general outline of how things would have looked. And like I've mentioned before, when looking at the overhead imagery, it's very, very rare to see vehicles on the main roads. And to see 200 in one place would have been extremely out of the ordinary. And thinking through the situation, how that could come to be, my impression is that the Germans at this time would have been trying to take advantage of the weather to move as much as possible with the lighter Allied air cover. And I think what we're seeing here is just the tail end of that, with the weather clearing at about this time. And I think the Germans caught on to that because, as we'll see on the next missions, they were unable to locate anything other than the usual just one or two vehicle here and there when they went back up after this entire column. But we'll get back to that in a bit. Now, 441 Squadron also goes up right after 442, and this is described as Scramble. 3 Focke-Wulf 190s were attacked southeast of Domfront. Flight Officer Fleming destroyed one, and a second was destroyed, shared by Flight Officer Brown, Flight Officer Cohen, and Flight Sergeant McMillan. And then both squadrons down at around 1515 and 1525. But we'll move on to the next mission up, and this is an armed reconnaissance, 1705 to 1830. 442 Squadron going up and looking for these vehicles that were spotted earlier. And this one notes 2 cars damaged moving west on road. At this location, we have 1 car damaged moving northeast. At this location, no enemy aircraft opposition, flight moderate, light, accurate from east of Jort, clear, visibility good. So we'll come in and just have a look at the terrain as it would have appeared to these guys, and like I said, they were unable to locate the larger column, but I think it would have been likely, looking at the situation from the German point of view, once they see the weather clearing and once they see Allied air cover again, not to remain in a formation of 200 vehicles. And if I were in their position, I would definitely not be on these main roads. I would keep it up here, well, yeah, more or less in the area where these cars were seen and strafed, on these little back roads, not on the main supply routes. But in either case, this mission only accounts for 2 or 3 vehicles destroyed, not what they were looking for. They go up again at 2150 on another armed reconnaissance mission, and let's see what they describe here. And we have 3 MET destroyed, and it gives 3 different sets of coordinates, so 1 south of Con, and then the other is over here to the east in the general area where the larger column was seen. It notes intense, accurate flak, light and heavy from 3 to 5,000 feet along this little corridor from Con and east. It notes moderate accurate flak from another location. I was unable to locate this MEGADON. That's not even a town and definitely doesn't look French. I would assume that it would be up here in this area. This is sort of following the overall path in order that it's noted. I would have guessed it would be up here around Keborg, but in either case, flak from that location bounced and fired on by thunderbolts up here around Wisterom, and no cloud, visibility unlimited, no enemy aircraft opposition. So still with aircraft-friendly identification troubles on these missions. I have one imagery overlay here. I wonder, okay, yeah, this was just noting this location down here where MET was destroyed on the road. Now this image, I remember why I put this one in now. This was from the 25th, just a few days after this mission. I was looking very, very closely right here for some burned out vehicles right here along this road. This is the exact location that was called out. We see some craters here in the area, I would imagine from bombing. Those look a little bit too big unless it was some really, really heavy duty artillery, but that definitely wouldn't be associated with this Spitfire sweep. They would have been strafing with guns, and the imagery that I generally look for this sort of thing off of is a little higher resolution than this. This is just what I can easily get into Google Earth, but no sign of the vehicles. They would have probably been either recovered or just off the road, maybe pushed off into some of the hedges or the trees right on the side, but in either case, that's the exact location, and this is what they would have been seeing at the time. Now, we do have one more mission, and this was and is still a puzzling mission to me because of the location it calls out. And this was the only mission by 443 Squadron for the day. They were standing alert but did not get scrambled. But 12 aircraft took off to dive bomb a German ammunition dump in the woods at Bois de Homme near Gaumont. Very accurate bombing results were observed, but there were no large explosions, and it would appear that there must have been some error in intelligence information and briefing. Enemy flak was very accurate over the target area. Now, I have actually spent way too much time trying to nail down a location on this. It's clearly Gaumont as a location. I was almost certain that that was just a misspelling of Caumont, Caumont, that's right here, and would have been figuring very, very heavily into operations at the time. And to top it off, there is a Bois de Homme right here at this location. It's clearly not the right location, though, because this would have been Allied-controlled territory north of Caumont, all the way down to Caumont itself. Now, there is a Gaumont down here to the south that is another possible location, but there's no Bois de Homme anywhere near this. That's not even a real location. If it was going to call out that this location was near something, it would have said near this town. It most definitely would not have described it as near Gaumont if this is the Gaumont it was referring to. So I'm, for the first time, really absolutely stumped on where this location would have been. It doesn't give coordinates. I was sure Gaumont was just a misspelling of Caumont, but in either case, they did do a dive bombing mission somewhere, but did not have the effect that they were expecting based on the information passed on from Intel. So that would have been down. Last aircraft for the wing would have been down at about 2200 or 2210 for the day. So that was, after this string of 3 days of practically nothing happening, a very, very eventful day. And we move on to the next day, another very, very eventful day, and we have an account from Johnny Johnson of another engagement with the Luftwaffe coming up tomorrow. So I'm going to press on to the 23rd. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you then.